Hello, my neighbors in the UK and Europe, and I guess a good morning to my neighbors in the East Coast for those early risers. Welcome aboard today. My name is Tommy Lee. I'm the VP of Sales for North America for Fanville. And what I intend to do today is I'm going to do a deep dive into the Fanville i6 series door phones. In fact, it's going to be, in essence, a quick overview of all of our i series products, which really consist of both intercoms, door access units, and what I intend to do this time that's going to be a little bit different is to really enable the audience to do a deeper dive into how do you get these units started. I often receive questions when I'm in the field and talking to my partners where, hey, for those that are just starting off, these units don't have screens. How do I get the IP address? Many of my partners are specific phones only, which is great, but many want to expand. And what I intend to do here is to really go through the basic configurations, showing how to really go about getting the unit, getting it started. Where do you go and get downloads for updated firmware, all kind of put together in one package so that you can go ahead and proceed and really take it from there so that those who are familiar with our solutions and technology, you can just really move forward and go, okay, and go from there. But before I get started, I just want to do a little bit of house cleaning. I do have handouts that I have made available to the audience here. You can go to your handout section in our GoToWebinar client and download a PDF version of everything that you see here. I will stay here post the webinar to address any questions that are necessary that may come up. If I don't have an immediate question by any means, send me your contact and I'll be more than happy to follow up with you, okay? So with that in mind, I'm going to go through and do it. And hopefully my goal is to really enable the audience to be able to go ahead and just really get into the basic configuration and really save you a lot of time, because I realize that time is a valuable resource for our partners out there. And I want to be able to sort of jumpstart you and being able to get to that point as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do is just go over the overview, provide the ability to provide i6 samples, and then you can go ahead and reach out to your specific partners for whatever type of sampling program within your specific region. Okay, then, for those who are not familiar with Fanville, what I intend to do is just to go over a very quick one slide program just to give you an overview. But my intent here is really to kind of go over and do a deep dive into our i-series or our indoor station. So Fanville in general is a large manufacturer. We actually provide quite a bit of designs, not only for ourselves, but for some of the major players in the marketplace. And I kind of want to kind of show you how we differentiate. I mean, in many cases, you can divide our solutions into really two different categories. As one is the X and V series, which describes, as well as the H series that describes our business phones, as well as hospitality units that show throughout here. We have ones that's focused on business lines, which really consist of our X series and XU series, as well as our V. And then we also have the hospitality line, which is really our H series phones. These phones are put together to really go about and do focus in on the hospitality market that provides endpoints that's expected there. What I'm going to concentrate on today is really focusing on the I, which we have both door access units, which consist of really being offered the capability of being able to provide swap cards and all that, not only on the outdoor units, but we also have indoor stations as well. Why are indoor stations really valuable? Is because depending on where you want to deploy, whether it's commercial or residential, very often aesthetically people may not want to have phones hanging on the wall or on your desk to be able to do it. But in terms of these things, you could actually mount this on your desk as well as look more aesthetically pleasing on the wall, so that you can actually see a very large display and be able to be granted either a touch screen or these speed dial buttons to give you access to enable you to bring in or to allow access for people that want to enter in your company. Beyond that, we also have intercoms, which is far more simpler interface. This takes away a lot of the card access and keyboards, but does provide you with various different units that provided for indoor, outdoor, as well as really others that with rain guards, with video, without video, 1 button, 2 button, I mean, you name it. This is just a small snapshot of many of the different solutions. And of course, ending it is really what we call our PA devices, which is our PA2 and PA3 series devices. And this really enables our partners out there to be able to convert any analog output into SIP. I'll give you an example. For those who actually have PA systems that are driven by many of the amplifiers that are out there, those are perfectly working. So when you want to upgrade from an old analog into a SIP-based system, you have 2 options. You can really exchange all the systems into an IP platform, which is fine. But if those that want to go ahead and preserve those speakers and amplifiers that are still working, you can actually retrofit those things and using this gateway as a SIP point to be able to provide a SIP interface into it. Not only that, but it can also provide access as well as reading multicast IP addresses as well into your audience. Tying all these things together, we also have a device management system we call FDMS. That's really the Fanvil device management system, which gives both a cloud-based solution, and we're actually coming out soon with an enterprise version that allows you to take the cloud-based and provide really on-premise access, depending on what type of access you have. And all of this really can interface closely with a cloud-based or a local-based PBX server. All of these things kind of put into one to really enable you, our partner, to be able to move forward. Now what I'm going to do is really focus in on the door access units, because the great news about the door access, once I get into this, accessing all the rest of these units will be identically the same. So you can really take what you learn in this session and apply it moving forward. Now let's just go over the overview for our I-series, focusing on the door phones. When you look at the door phones, what you actually see here is really all of these are SIP-based endpoints, so that these will connect, and I'll get into how you physically connect them in the future, but we really have series that we've been deploying for the last several years, and these will still continue on. But complementing these, we're also introducing the i6 series, and these are really showing up in our channels as of today. So it comes in 4 separate flavors. One is really a solid state device that also has a card reader as well. But both of these i61s and i62s are identical, where the i62 has a physical button, whereas the i61 is a bit smaller with just a virtual button. Both work identically the same, but it depends on what type of interface you're looking for. On the i63 and 64, it goes into the multifunction and the multi-key access, where you want to access multiple units within a unit. And obviously the i64 gives you the actual access keys on the right-hand side, while at the same time providing the entrant, the user, to be able to dial whatever access or extension that is provided. And these are our new things. And what's the difference between going from the old to the new? As we're moving forward, one of the things that Fanville has done is being able to provide the ability to get into more standardization, meeting standardization like ONVIF, WeGAN, and all of these different durability standards that all of them will apply. But as we move forward, these things will be more and more easy complied, because they'll fit the easy standards out there to make these monitorable by all the different cameras. And if you notice, all of these units have a wide angle video access monitors to allow video access as well. And I'm going to get into more of the details, but moving on to the next section, we also have intercoms. And in the intercoms, really, these things we have, one of the most popular lines are indoor intercom. These are just a small pack. It's about the size of a deck of poker cards. And you can go ahead, we have 1 unit, 2 button units. We have those with and without video. So it depends on what type of unit you're looking for. So we have a flavor that will really meet your specific needs. In addition to the indoor intercoms, we also have outdoor intercoms, which really are meant to put up with a lot more physical abuse, not only weather-wise, but also things like being able to access, backdoor entrances, truck entrances, all of these different access points that you can provide on campus, off campus, with and without video, 1 or 2 buttons that are shown here, so that you can go ahead and pick the solution that we want to do. And the great news is that all of these are built, I guess with the exception of the indoor units, to really withstand a lot of wide temperature demands that are put onto these units moving forward. Now, besides the outdoor units intercom, we also want to focus in on the indoor stations. And these indoor stations is just an alternative to having either a phone hanging on the wall or on your desk, or even a monitoring system. You know, you don't necessarily want to have your home or your residence looking like a security center within a casino or something like that. But these are easy items that you can actually place on a wall, be able to provide you with a large touch screen, or really a more simple interface here with the i52s, giving you quick, easy access buttons to allow people to come in, or you'd be able to give you kind of a peek through so that you can see who's actually outside the door. We also have an indoor Android-based system as well. Many implementations out there have partners developing Android-based APK units that will provide their own interface so that you can actually run this on these units. And we're beginning to expand our indoor interface. This is available now, the i56A, and soon we'll be introducing the i55 and i57A, which are up and coming. The big difference here is that we're going to go ahead and provide some additional touchscreen interfaces onto these units moving forward. And this one here is a total touchscreen access. So it really depends on what you're looking for, but it's something that we're actually putting a lot of focus in on moving forward, because we also see this as a major growing market going out there, because many of these units and communications are moving from old analog into SIP, and these are all interfaces that are the endpoints that will enable you to do a direct connection into the SIP interface. Now, beyond the indoor units, we also have control access, and variety is the key, because we have the A32i, which provides really the touchscreen capability of being able to have a full touchscreen, giving you some usable touchscreen keys here, also providing you the widest flexibility. Now, you also have an audience that like buttons, and in those buttons, we also have the classic i210. This is one of the designs that Fanvil is most famous for, and we actually have a design both in the X210 as well as the A32, providing you the capability of seeing who's at the door and giving you access to many of the different buttons, as well as the many different side keys here, giving you 3 separate windows on enabling them to gain access into your system or not. And you can use them in both ways. You can use them to do security access as well as just standard front desk receptionist type of applications as well. So it's really up to you and how you want to do that. And last but not least, we have the PA2S as well as the PA3. The primary difference between these two units is that the PA2S actually contains a relay, which enables you to be able to open up doors, control gates, and all these things like that, whereas the PA3 has a little bit more focus on audio only. And in this audio only interface, gives you the capability of being able to store some of the audio WAV files and things like that on a memory SIP card, which you can put in, and that will give you the flexibility of being able to call out pre-done announcements and things like that. So really, these units are what I call the sort of the SIP engine into any particular analog interface, whether it be lifts or escalators or elevators to PA systems moving forward. Now let's get into a more focused thing, and I'm going to talk more about the i6 series, which is something that we're going to be bringing out. In fact, these things should be in stock right now with many of our distribution partners globally. And again, these things go ahead and introduce i61 through i64. And what I have next to me in the on demo is I actually have an i64 that's actually hooked in. So I'm going to show you some of the internal screens that will give you an idea of what you can go ahead and see internally, and as well, I'll show you how to gain access. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that a great enhancements is that we've actually gone ahead and complied with a lot of the industry standards to enable these devices to speak to existing security systems. Many people upgrade from old analog to digital, but then yet this thing allows you to video stream this data into existing monitors so that we can comply to all the ONVIF and WeGAN type solutions. And then as well, they all comply to the IP66 and IK07 dustproof and waterproof capabilities, because these things do get mounted outdoors and are subjected to a lot of abuse. So when you pick one of these things up, you're going to feel the weight and durability of all of these different devices. Some of the nice little things that we have is that for residential people that may be hard of hearing, we include a loop antenna compatibility into some of these devices, where for people who have a hearing aid, they can push this so it can actually amplify the audio into all of these things. And the great news is that it's got a built-in memory card giving you like 128 gigabytes of memory inside these units, because you can decide whether you want this to work standalone. But many companies also have a server-based type of application that stores all of the video and entrance people that come in, and these units can interface either to an existing server or be able to interface into a smaller unit for the SMB type application that may not have, a very wide server application. So these things are really designed as base units to fit into many different applications, but complying with many of the different demands, whether it be a full-size keypad, 5, or just even a single interface. And these things can all talk to the indoor stations and more. Now let's get into a little bit more of the hardware mounting. Of course, all of these things can fit into the wall, and not only do you have outdoor units, but we also have the capability of mounting these things, and we sell backdrops. These things are an optional thing that we sell along with it, depending on which one you do. We have flush mount as well as surface mount type of units that were all designed to really meet the durability of terms of dependability on avoiding destruction, and as well as being able to avoid a lot of the rain and things like that to meet all of the product specifications here. And these are optional units giving you the ability to do that depending on how you want to mount it. And in addition, when you go ahead, this is a brick interface on a flush mount system. You can obviously tell these things will all meet the different type of wide temperature ranges that are exposed for these units, as well as meeting many of the different durability specifications that are out there. Now, meeting a little bit more of the design, we've done a lot of things to really meet these things so that we have an RFID IC readers. This is an RFID reader which really complies to several standards that are out there. Not only is it a reader, but it's also an authoring tool so that you can use this to author many of the brand new cards that you want out there, or you can go ahead and really design in and use all the existing readers that your employees may already have out there. All of them contain cameras, as mentioned before, but they also have a peripheral design here where you can go ahead and it senses that people are within region, and it'll automatically turn on and be able to take whatever input you want to do. And I'm going to get into more of the items here in terms of feasibility moving forward. And of course, these things were not made to operate alone. They're also made to go ahead and interface with our IP phones and indoor stations, or absolutely monitors. But you could also put things like PIR sensors, where if people with handicap access, they may not have the ability to open these doors. If they sense that people are on, you could set these things to function off a specific timer so that when something is opened up, you can actually have them open the door automatically, or trigger an electric lock. It really depends on what you want to do with these units. Here's just a quick example of what I mentioned before about the indoor stations. You can, if you wanted to, have a desk phone either on your desk or in your unit, but obviously some of the things that are a little bit more compelling and in residential or perhaps even a commercial environment are the indoor stations here. And these, it depends on what you're looking for, but those are all SIP-based units. We have both touch-based as well as quick key type of things that will allow you access to get into it. Now, these are really simple hotspot applications that kind of give you a high-level overview. This is when I start digging a little bit deeper to kind of give you an idea of having an i64. You can mount these things into any basic PoE switch. They're all PoE compatible, but you could also power this with an external 12-volt power supply as well. And obviously you can connect these with the phones as well as all of your indoor stations. And internally now, one of the nice things I'm going to also show you is that if you deploy these door access units in a small application where it's just all indoors, you can actually communicate directly from this unit into these indoor stations or these phones directly. So if you don't have a need for external access, you can communicate directly from this unit directly to these units as well without necessarily having the need. But if you want to have external unit for these units, then you could put in a cloud-based or an on-prem PBX server, which then gives you full access to remote as well as local access to these units. So again, it's a matter of providing you the flexibility in how you want to go ahead and do that. And of course, in the business environment, no doubt that Microsoft Teams has made a big impact in being able to put it in. And so we've gone out of our way to really provide compatibility between our i6 units and working with Cybergate to give you the ability to work, and anybody who has a Microsoft Teams client on their mobile phone would be able to gain full video as well as audio access on all of these units. And then if they are a friendly or have accessibility into your organization or your residence, you could just press a speed dial and that'll enable them to gain access into your unit. I'm not going to get into the details here, but I will provide that this capability does exist. And as well, you can use this on the Teams client to really look at it in all of these different endpoints, whether it's a control center or having a smartphone that exists out there. I'm not going to go into all of these buttons. For those who may have signed on a little bit late, there is a soft copy in the handout section of your client. Feel free to download. The intent of me providing this matrix is to kind of give you really some of the technical details about all of these different units moving forward. Again, when it comes to access card numbers, really it's up to 1,000. So these are not really small units. They're made for much larger applications, and they all have really two basic SIP lines moving forward, but they actually contain many of the wideband as well as narrowband codecs, giving you that capability of being able to access whatever thing that you need moving forward. Again, same here. I don't want to repeat all of these units here, but they just go ahead and comply on all of the wide temperature range and protection levels that people seek in adopting these units. Now let's go into the deep dive a little bit. Now in a deep dive, this is where I start giving you access on moving forward. Now when you look in the back of the unit and take out the units, what you're going to end up seeing is being able to see in the back here, this is a PoE switch right here, giving you just a PoE, sorry about the flipping of this slide here, but it gives you all of the access, giving you ability to look into electronic locks and all of these units and buttons moving forward. And all of these things are really provided going ahead. Now, how do you access the IP address of all of these i6 units? I get this question very often because when you work with telephones, all the telephones have displays that show you what the IP address is. And here, my kind of favorite is long press the DSS key. So you work with one of these function keys for 3 seconds after a power on. So when you press it for 3 seconds, you're going to end up hearing a beep. And then once you hear the beep, you could press another speed dial button, and the unit will automatically announce what the new IP address is. And this is lacking those people that don't have a network scanner that's on hand. You could work with this unit, plug it in, assuming that you have a DHCP set up or a static IP setup, depending on what you want to do. You can have that assign an address to this unit, and you can have this unit provide you with the IP address. Why do you need an IP address? Because then you could take that IP address, put it into your web browser, and that will give you a full GUI access, which is something that I'm going to move into now. So when you go in and get the GUI access, you're going to go into really our support site. I'm going to go into quickly where that download site is, and you're actually going to gain the GUI interface onto our i64. This is where I'm going to kind of divert from my presentation and now allow you to kind of hook into many of the different pieces moving forward here. So what I'm going to do here is then give you access to how to access here. So once you log in, this is my local IP address that I have here. And when you do in, the default address here is admin. And so I highly suggest everybody to obviously put in your own unique address out there. But what we have here is, hold on, and this will actually give you the ability to go ahead and log on to the different things, and you have different systems, intercom settings. But one of the things that I highly suggest everybody to do is to really enable your firmware upgrade, so that once you get it, you know, the firmware that's actually loaded on the system may not be the actual latest ones that you might have. And what I suggest is being able to get into the actual system. Now you go to an upgrade screen on the system, and from here you can go ahead and select, where is this software upgrade? You know, I have the latest here, but what you can do here is then go into the software upgrade, press select, and then here you can go ahead and download on your site and bring in the firmware, so that you can point to the actual firmware showing you how to upgrade these devices moving forward. You know, how do you do that? You can go into the actual Fanvil website. This is our open website, and you can go into support. And when you go into the support and download center, this is where we actually open up everything. And here you will actually see many of the different categories that we have here. In this case, it's the security industry product, where I will go into the i64. And when you go into the i64, here is where the firmware is that you can download here, or you can go ahead and view whatever documents that might be available here for the security product. And you can see here where we actually have the user manual, quick information guide, and data sheets, all what you can go ahead and look at and download. And once you go ahead and do that, you can then come here, press an upgrade, and be able to move forward. And one of the things that I'm going to get into as well is, once it finishes upgrading, you can go ahead and take a look at the line. And for those who are familiar with using our phones, this line interface is going to look very, very familiar, because why? This is the one of the really two different SIP addresses that we will provide onto this unit, so you can assign access into these things. And here we'll ask you the basic questions, where you can go ahead and really assign the authentication user, password, and really intercom where all of these different addresses are. And you can obviously put on action plans, setting up hotspots, and really incur many of the different settings moving forward here. Now I'll kind of get back into the settings here and kind of show what we want to do moving forward. So this is the interface that I showed earlier about getting into the access and upgrading it. And this also shows the screen that I showed live, that gives you really all of the different codec settings, the advanced settings, as well as many of the global settings that you might have when you set up this unit moving forward. Then you get into the function keys, right? Many of the units, with the exception of the 6162, which has one function key, but how do you go about doing that? Obviously, these are all set, but what you can do is you can actually subset a lot of these function keys moving forward, and as well as being able to set up what type of relays that work on the next system that you might have here, because you're going to have in what we call the EGS settings. EGS, we call that as entrance guard system settings, where you can actually configure the type of relays that you have on your door. You configure how your card access, and as well as the password. And let me kind of get into these type of things on the actual unit moving forward. So what I'll do here is then get into the function key list that I talked earlier. Here will give you the ability not only to work, on a hands-free mode, but it gives you all of the different type of subtype events that you can do with all of these different keys. You can have a key event, memory key, a multicast paging key. You can really configure this unit to do whatever you want based on these function keys. Now, when you go under the EGS settings, here's the different type of things you can do in setting up the relay modes. You can do monostable or bistable. Some may want to have different relays configured to different type of things moving forward. And this is where you can kind of go ahead and configure these type of units that you want. You can have it stay open. You can actually configure your card here. This is where you go ahead and import the card list. If you have an existing card list, you can actually import it through a CSV file, and you can actually update it here, or you can go ahead and build up a list here for people that do have access, and you can actually control what type of access they have, whether you go ahead and put it through a time profile, when you can enable it. You could have all these different type of schemas that you could have here. Then you have password type of configurations. With passwords, you can really set up a local password, which means that this is the password that everybody will have access to really punch in. By factory default, you can go ahead and enable it at 6789. This is something that you can go ahead in, and it'll allow you to go in. Obviously, you don't want to keep it on the default settings, but anybody who pushes that, that's the default setting, but you could set this to whatever key code that you wanted to moving forward. Then you have remote access. In this case, the default setting is the asterisk key or the star key. And with this, anybody who accesses this card remotely, giving it a SIP call, you could then go ahead and press that key, providing entrance for you to be able to kind of enable access to do that. And you could set it for all different types of password moving forward, giving you a list where you can also set up different types of labels here moving forward. Okay, then you also have time profiles. And this is where you also want to set up where, you may want to keep all the doors open between 8 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. And then after those hours, it'll default to these settings. So depending on what type of configuration you are looking for, you can really configure these things moving forward. So this is really a customized device, and we're working with many of the PBX manufacturers out there to be able to integrate this device into their system so that it gives you the basic settings. So once it goes in a setting, you'll go online, but obviously these type of settings here, you will have to go ahead and manually configure moving forward. This I've gone ahead and talked about the password settings moving forward live. And these are the different camera settings moving forward. And in the camera settings, you can really do a lot of the different things. You can enable this. It really defaults into H.264, which is the VGA setting quality. And these things enable you to really go about and be able to set these streams. Now, these streams don't necessarily go out as the IP address of the actual device. What I'll do moving forward, going back into the actual setting, is that in the actual intercom settings here for the camera settings, what you will note is that it really defaults into what we call the RTSP settings and under the H.264 codec. And you can allow, in this case, what we call real-time streaming protocol. This is really the most popular protocol that allows you, for outphones, our indoor stations, or actually monitors, to go ahead and monitor all the video and audio input to see where these units are, and you can have multiple buttons showing which camera you wanted to go ahead and see, and then you can go ahead and enable, disable the different types of units here moving forward. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you can go ahead and set time and day settings here for all different types of units and how you want to set up time and day for the actual unit. Then you could also set up multicast settings as well. You can have this listen in to many of the different units out there, and you can really configure this to do as you go ahead and see fit for your specific application. Now, with that said, these are really what I call the last setting that I have that I'm going to show, and gives you really the basic settings that I have shown here. I think this is sort of the last slide, and what I want to do now is really move forward to the next Q&A session. And what I want to do now is ask that anybody that has a question about this type of unit to really put the questions in the question box, and I'll stay as long as possible to really address any of these questions moving forward. I'll set aside time, several minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, to address any questions out there. If not, then I appreciate your valued time being with me. For those who may have signed on late, you can actually download the handout section of this presentation for you on your clients. You can go down to the handout section and see what you want to do. So far, I don't have any specific questions out there. If there are any particular questions, feel free to give me a shout. I'll be more than happy to address any questions that are out there. Okay, video. Okay, someone did address a question. Hang on just a moment. Okay, for door access, is it working with video in zoom mode? I'm not necessarily sure what you mean by zoom mode. I think what these cameras are is that they're wide angle, so that you can go ahead and actually provide a wide angle lens. But I don't know if you have the capability of being able to pan these units. These are fixed cameras that are provided in a wide angle, so it gives you access to watching, a wide angle capability. Okay. Oh, Zoom as provider like Teams. I see. Well, you can access it via Teams, but you could be able to maybe zoom in on a specific camera. That's something that's specific on an application. I don't know the exact uh, application for Zoom, but that's something that I can go ahead and look into, because I'll look at Zoom mode. I will take an action and get back to you. I know that's addressed by several people here on Teams, and get back. I know that both Vincenzo, I'll go ahead and see if, or Eon Vogel, to see if it happens. Question regarding the app. What app should be downloaded to control the opening of the front door? Is it compatible with PBXs? Yeah, in fact, the relays actually work off of the DTMF tone, so that if you take a SIP application, some SIP applications support audio only, some actually support audio as well as video. So it really depends. We're right now compiling a list of all of these different SIP applications, so that you can have a list, but we're not necessarily there yet to publish who they are. But if they do work and you have the capability of connecting to it, just put in the correct DTMF tones, and that will provide you with the right access, releasing those relays that you have set, as long as it's consistent with the specific settings that you've done out there. Does it support remote relay? No, it doesn't. Actually, the relays that are on these systems are on the device itself. These devices actually have a tamper-proof alarm, which if somebody were to tamper it, it will send out an alarm notice. But I know in terms of remotely having an offset relay that's outside of the unit, these units, all the relays are on chip, are on the actual device. Let me see. Okay. Does it support? I think those are the questions that I have so far, such as any of the web relay products. Okay. Will these intercoms integrate with most competitive VoIP phone solutions? Yes, in fact, all of these intercoms are SIP-based intercom interfaces, and that if you have a SIP-based PBX, whether it's a cloud-based or an on-prem base, they will answer any of these calls just like an IP phone would. In fact, that's a big part of our business, that will contain the same SIP stack that will do that. So the answer is yes. In fact, all of the peripherals, all of the endpoints that Fanvil develops are all SIP-based endpoints, so that you can go ahead, call these devices as you would a normal phone or a mobile phone. You can obviously assign an extension or a full DID to these devices and configure them just like a phone, and they'll work just like a phone, but they actually function very differently, obviously, for this specific application. Okay, I think that's it for now. That's all the questions that I have. I'll stay on in case anybody else, but I want to take this extra minute to really thank you again for your valued time. And should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your specific global representative. Fanvil does have people that reside in specific regions or have a global applications, and reach out to our distribution channel, because they as well are a resource for us, and many of them are technically trained on our products, and we are here to help you. Should you have any technical support, feel free to go and reach out to support@fanville.com, and that will go into a global bin, which every region will have access to your inquiry, and your local region will be able to get back to you. If you're more on a sales basis, feel free to reach out to sales@fanville.com. And of course, I will also get a copy for those in North America, but also your specific regional lead for Fanville will also receive a copy of that and get right back to you. Again, thank you for your time. Have a healthy life moving forward, and hopefully run into you again real soon. Okay? Thank you for your time and enjoy your day. Bye-bye. You're very welcome.